1 year after the tragic midair collision that claimed 67 lives, 3 of the men who oversaw the emergency response talked about how it's impacted them.
News 4's Mark Seagrave sat down for an extensive interview where they also explained the lessons learned from the tragedy.
Both the helicopter and the plane crashed in the river. It's east of the approach end of runway 33.
It was just around 9 that frigid night when reports started coming in.
I just saw a fireball and then it was just gone.
What unfolded in the hours, days, and weeks following was one of the worst air disasters in U.S. history and the torturous task of recovering those lost. D.C. Fire Chief John Donnelly, Interim Police Chief Jeffrey Carroll, and Medical Examiner Dr. Francisco Diaz were on the scene from the start and oversaw the delicate operations for the weeks to follow.
When they got to the scene and identified a plane part, my initial reaction was, that's really bad. And that's when I started heading to the scene.
It was a CRJ and a helicopter that hit.
And then they came back and said it was a commercial aircraft. And then it was your mind going 1,000 miles an hour with trying to check through all the things that were going to need to happen.
Chief Donnelly recalls when he first arrived at the chaotic scene.
I walked up on the levee. I could see a couple boats with lights on portions of the aircraft. I could see all the response assets on the other side of the river and the ones that were pulling in here. And I was like, okay, it's real. We got a lot of work to do. And we were still hoping to get people at that point.
How long was that hope alive?
It was an hour. In an hour, we knew the water was cold, and that would have been the best thing to help somebody say that it drowned. But at the hour mark, we knew there were no survivors. We hadn't even had anything close.
Chief Carroll had his own concerns in those first few hours.
That's not a call that I've ever had in my 23 years here with Metropolitan Police Department. So really, when it first came out, we had no idea what it was. We had heard there was a commercial plane involved. We had heard there was a helicopter involved. We didn't know if it was one plane of either type that went down. It wasn't until later on we actually determined that there was a helicopter. It was actually a collision that was there. So again, you know, in any large-scale scene, there's a lot of I call the initial chaos of different types of reports. You know, people saw things in the sky. They saw flashes. What does that mean? We don't know. Being in the police department, obviously responding out for life safety, but is it a terrorist attack? Is it something more than just a crash? We don't know exactly what we have, so all those things run through your mind when you're initially responding.
Dr. Diaz and his team led the effort on land to identify the bodies and help the families.
It was very clear from reading the manifest of the aircraft that families were involved. That first night, we made the decision to divert the forensic biology unit, meaning DNA, only exclusively concentrated in doing DNA analysis in a very rapid fashion for the benefit of those families. We are very proud to say that by February the 5th, we have the victim scientifically identified. That was rather fast.
In addition to the identification process, Diaz was also responsible for coordinating with the families of those on board the American Airlines flight, a responsibility that became personal for Diaz on many levels.
Meeting with the families, interacting with the families, it was emotionally tough, but at the same time very rewarding interacting with them. And on top of that, my wife went to school in Johnstown, Pennsylvania with one of the victims. So I knew the family, and that adds another layer, but you have to basically complete your work because you are doing it for them as well. And my interactions with every family, basically I get to know a lot of them on a first name basis. It was a family my wife kind of knew when we received the call and said, I think my friend was on that flight, because they were communicating on social media and she lived in the area as well. And those are the type of things, you know, this is the job we have chosen. This is our profession.
So not only are you helping and consoling the families of the victims, you're having that same conversation with your wife at home.
100%, and that's what I told families when I went to that family assistance center. You know, you're grieving, but I'm grieving, so I'm trying to give you the answers as much as I can, while at the same time communicating that with my wife, which in the absence of family members for that family acted on behalf of that family as well.
1 year later, officials have yet to finalize after-action reports on the response. Are we better prepared? Is DC Fire better prepared for an incident like this a year later because of what you've learned from that than we were then? What would you say?
I would say we're better for a number of reasons. One of them is we have the experience, and nothing beats the experience. Two is there are some small equipment issues, focus in training things that are better and we know better that we've been able to address. But I think what the real message for everybody is the importance of the agreements and the relationships in the region. The lessons learned here are if you share a river with a jurisdiction, you better know what you're going to do.
Along the Potomac River, Mark Seagraves, News 4.